Hello, everyone. This is Joe Cisco, and I've created this short screencast to introduce you to a couple of approaches of assessment in a classroom. And the point of this video is not necessarily to provide any solutions, more so to get you thinking about what can be sustainable in your future classroom. So, the traditional teacher-led approach, as you're seeing, um, is generally following this workflow here. So the teacher assigns some work. The example is they might ask students to write a paragraph or something. The student collects those stacks of student work, as you can see, and the teacher spends hours grading student work, and they're, marking up the student's work. They're providing feedback, which whatever color pen they decide to use, usually a red pen. Number four is a very key step. The teacher passes back that work, and students often glance at the grade, which is interesting. And there's no incentive to do more with that work, and the process is then over. And you'll notice in the bottom right corner, there's a recycling bin. Often that work goes in the recycling bin. And the same sort of thing might happen in a digital area or a digital world, where even teachers are spending time providing comments in a digital space where they might change the color of their font and so on, might add some certain comments. But when the student looks at the grade, the process is generally over. This is incredibly unsustainable. The teacher's going to have lots of burnout. The teacher's doing all of the assessment in there, and the student generally would have very little incentive to go look back at that work and do some improvement there. Let's take a look at a different approach. And the whole idea here, again, please understand, is not to provide any solutions. We can do that in a later conversation, but more so to present the problem to you and maybe think about these two approaches and what pros and cons they may offer. So in this approach, the student again writes a paragraph. The teacher provides that opportunity to write a paragraph. The student submits the paragraph to a and I put Grammarly here. I use Grammarly to check on my grammar and my spelling, but any sort of online tool could do that feedback on grammar and mechanics. So there's one piece of the puzzle that I think we need to put on the student. The student can take the responsibility for doing those types of things, checking grammar and so on. Certainly, this is something the teacher can do at the start of the year, but as the year goes on, we need to empower students to do that themselves. Number three, the teacher provides a strong model or exemplar and a rubric so the student can self-assess. Key word there being self-assess. So the student would then have an opportunity to say, okay, let me see if how my work is doing here. I want to have a model. Again, the teacher can provide an exemplar, and the student can compare their work against that. Um, Finally, number four, the student reflects on what they learned in an ongoing assessment document or learning log. So if you think of it this way, the student, once they've done steps one, two, and three, are now pretty much in the position to say, hey, teacher, let's take a look now at how I'm doing right here. I've done some self-assessment. I've checked my own grammar. I've checked my own mechanics and so on. Those types of things I've covered. Yes, you've taught me how to do that, but this is very much student-led approach. This seems sustainable. And the idea here, again, if we go back to the teacher-led assessment model, that piece at the bottom that it might end up in the recycling bin and so on is less likely in a student-led approach because the student has been the person who's done most of the reflecting, most of the sort of self-assessing. Again, in terms of presenting to you two separate models, please consider how each of these might look in your classroom, certainly in a digital space. Um, and then think about the sustainability of this because you might be teaching for a lot of years. And this will hopefully get you thinking as we move on to our next video.